Hello, boys and girls. The story that I am going to read for you today is called It Came from Outer Space. This story was written by Henry Barker and was illustrated by Barry Gott. The genre of this text is narrative realistic fiction. Remember, narrative means that this is a story. Fiction means that this is not real. But because this is realistic fiction, even though the characters in this story are not real, this story could really happen in real life. "Sleep tight, boys. Don't let the tent bugs bite," called Marlin's father. As soon as Marlin heard the back door slam, he unzipped his sleeping bag and crawled out of the tent. His friends Albert and Steve followed him. They were sleeping over. "It's dark out here," whispered Steve. A rustling noise came from the trees, and he yelped, "What's that?" "Probably a squirrel," said Marlin, flopping down on the grass. Steve peered around nervously. "Are you sure?" he asked. "We can't be sure without investigating further," said Albert. "I could get my flashlight. It's extremely powerful." "We don't need a flashlight," said Marlin. He pointed. "We have the moon." "That's Orion, the hunter," said Albert. "That's my favorite constellation." They were all looking at the stars when a blaze of light, big, round, and as bright as fireworks, appeared suddenly in the sky. Albert's mouth fell open. Marlin jumped to his feet. Steve ducked. The ball of light came closer, as if it were heading straight for them. "It's attacking!" yelled Steve, covering his head with his arms. "It's moving through our atmosphere at great speed," said Albert. "It could be a meteor." "That's crashing," said Marlin, as the ball of light disappeared into the trees. "What if it's a spaceship from another galaxy?" He pulled on his shoes. "Let's go find it," he said. "It might need our help." A meteor is a rock or a piece of metal that enters the Earth's atmosphere. When it does, it burns and heats the air around it so that from Earth it looks like a flash of light. "No!" protested Steve. "We'll get lost. Let's go tomorrow." Albert shrugged. "It probably burned up. Most meteorites do. If it did land, it will have a fusion crust, a black coating." "So we'd never find it in the dark," Steve said quickly. "It would be hard, even with my flashlight," said Albert. "I guess we can go in the morning," said Marlin. A meteorite is a meteor that actually survives the trip through the Earth's atmosphere and lands on Earth. That night, they all had vivid dreams with happy endings. Steve always felt brave when he was asleep. The next morning, the three boys wolfed down their pancakes. "You're in a big hurry," said Marlin's mother. "We want to explore a little," Marlin said. "Don't go past the creek," said Marlin's father. "And be back by lunchtime," said his mother. "Why don't you guys go without me?" asked Steve when they got to the edge of the woods. "It looks awfully spooky in there." "I've been in these woods billions of times," said Marlin. "They're totally safe." "What if we find something from space?" said Albert. "You want to be there, don't you?" "I guess so," said Steve. The friends walked and walked. Albert found some interesting rocks, but they weren't meteorites. Marlin spotted a deer and a fawn, but no aliens. Steve thought he heard a gorilla, but it was only a chipmunk. So we're going to take a quick break to look at this question. Why did Albert bring a magnet along? Meteorites can be hard to tell from regular rocks, but meteorites often have iron in them, and magnets are attracted to iron. So if a magnet is pulled to something that looks like a rock, that rock may be a meteorite. Then suddenly, there was a loud crack of thunder. Steve jumped. The sky turned dark and rain began to fall. "Follow me," said Marlin. "There's a cave near the creek." "Come on in," Marlin called. "It's dry in here." "It's dark in there," said Steve. "Not with this," said Albert. He pulled his flashlight from Steve's backpack. "Hope the batteries don't run out," Steve said. Wouldn't it be great if we really found aliens? Said Marlin. It would be great if we found anything from outer space, said Albert. It would be great if the rain stopped, said Steve. I'm soaked and I'm very prone to colds. Before long, the rain did stop. Don't we have to be back soon? Asked Steve. I'm getting hungry. Marlin nodded. We can take a different way home. That way we can look some more. Great, said Albert. They started walking. With every step, Marlin and Albert looked hopefully at the ground. Steve was more interested in the sky. It was turning dark again. Aliens, where are you? Meteorites, where are you? It's creepy here. Suddenly, Marlin and Albert heard a shout from Steve. Look, he yelled. He was pointing at a big tree. The branches are all twisted and broken and black. Albert focused his binoculars. Something's caught up there, he said, but I can't tell what it is. Let's find out, Marlin said. Give me a boost. Steve and Albert helped him up. He grabbed a branch and started climbing. A minute later, he was halfway up the tree. Something came hurtling down out from the branches. Yikes! Steve ducked as it landed at his feet. Look at the surface. It's all coated and blackened, said Albert. It even smells burnt. Is that a fusion crust? Asked Steve. Maybe, said Albert, but this is definitely not a meteorite. Well, it's not an alien either, said Marlin. Maybe it's a piece of space debris, said Albert. There's a lot floating around, but it usually burns up before it hits Earth. We could call NASA. NASA is the part of the U.S. government in charge of exploring space. NASA sent the first human beings to the moon. I know what it is. A nozzle from a rocket. Marlin pointed to his t-shirt. The fiery gases shoot right from there. That's what makes the rocket go up. You mean it really did come from outer space? Asked Steve. Albert nodded. Cool, said Steve. Let's go home and call NASA, Marlin said. Space debris, or space trash, is anything man-made that stays in space even though it's no longer useful. There's tons of debris up there, including an astronaut's glove from the very first spacewalk, and a camera from the Gemini 10 mission. If you find space debris, call NASA. Do not touch it. I can't believe we really found this, said Marlin. It's awesome. It is awesome, said Steve. And you were right about something else, guys. What? Asked Albert and Marlin. Steve took another slice of pizza. I am glad I came along. Think like a scientist. Marlin and his friends think like scientists, and so can you. Scientists observe by using their senses. Sometimes they sharpen their senses by using scientific tools such as microscopes, thermometers, and binoculars. Look back. On pages 6 through 7, what did Marlin and his friends observe in the night sky? On pages 24 through 29, each boy made important observations. What were they? What senses did they use? What tool? Try this. You will need a pencil and a piece of paper. It came from the kitchen. Pretend that you are an alien who is hiding in a kitchen while an earthling eats a spaghetti dinner. Your job is to observe and report back to folks on planet Zorga. There's one problem. Zorgans never heard of food or eating. Write about something you see, something you smell, and something you hear. What will Zorgons learn from your report? Now, boys and girls, I would love to hear what you thought about this book, so please feel free to leave a comment in the chat.